Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I know, good to see you too. Happy Monday. Let's get right into it. My first guest, we like having him on because my first guest has a knack for saying things today that you're going to read about somewhere else, probably around Thursday or so. His name, is Dr. We'll start with Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur. He is an expert in a lot of things: chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, at Rigaku Analytical Devices. Welcome back, Dr. Jeffrey.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, let's start with what's probably the biggest situation that's unsettled thus far, the Ukraine-Russia ceasefire. Ukraine sounds like they agreed to it. Russia sounds like they agree with it in principle, but it's not signed yet. What's going on with that?
So Putin is negotiating for time, and here's what I mean by that. When he is positioning himself and his military forces should there be a violation of the ceasefire, or if he decides to violate a peace accord later on. And so I'm watchful. I'm listening to what Putin is saying right now, but I'm paying attention to what he's doing on the battlefield. He's got a small number of Ukrainian forces still in Russian territory in that region called Kursk. That's an irritant to him. I don't think he is going to agree to any ceasefire until all of those troops are removed or neutralized. He's also apparently on open source building railway and city and highways to resupply some of the larger cities that are already have been annexed and under military control. The thought process there is that they will rearm, refit, and be in a leveraged position should peace fail.
Yeah, and I'm having a hard time finding details on this. You know, I see them arguing about land, but they never go into details. They're arguing about some power plant that's in the Donbass. And where's all the details? Where can I find that?
Yeah, so I use a number of sources. The Institute for War, run by retired General Keane, is a great primary source for a lot of that. It comes with maps.
Institute for War.
It allows you to follow.
Okay.
Yeah, that allows you. I'm sure you've seen him profiled on Fox.
Yeah, he's like an admiral or something, right?
Yeah, he's a retired 4-star general.
General, okay.
And yeah. He's a mover and a shaker. And he knows exactly what he's talking about. But that's a primary source. That's not the only source.
Thank you.
But absolutely. But it's the devil is in the details for a peace accord, not necessarily the ceasefire. But I think Putin is concerned that Ukraine is going to rearm and refit during the ceasefire. I think he's still concerned that there's going to be a NATO backing or a U.S. presence in terms of security agreements between a number of countries, and he's been very plain to the international community. He views Ukraine as kind of the buffer zone between NATO and his sovereign rights and territories. And so that's always been a sticking point.
The other thing I want to ask you about, Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur, there was a strike against the Houthis. That was us. Iran vows a response. What do we need to know about that?
Yeah, send it.
Well, that's a good answer.
No, look at the Iranians are in a very, very bad position. Their proxy groups lost in Lebanon. Their proxy groups lost in Gaza. The Al Houthis are still a string organization that operate. I think resupply and resources from Iran to these proxy groups is dwindling. The president penned a letter offering an off-ramp or a level of peace to Iran to curb their appetite for a nuclear weapon. I don't know that they've responded to that, but if Iran wants to rear on their hind legs and shoot, then I would tell you all they're doing is making themselves a target. something for the United States Navy and Air Force to take perfect aim at.
Yeah, they used to call that foreign policy style from Jersey Shore. They called it the "come at me, bro." Is what they call that one. Come at me, bro.
Yeah, it's successful for one side, not the other. Absolutely.
I love that, Dr. Jeffrey Brodew. I appreciate your time, sir. Thanks for sharing your expertise on WBAP.
Absolutely. Good day.
All right, you can find them online. Rigaku Analytical Devices, Rigaku, and I'm going to check that out. The Institute for War. I have a new source now. But you know what I'm talking. I bet you Garrett knows. Or are you too young to know Jersey Shore? Come at me, bro. Come on, come at me, bro. You ain't gonna do nothing. Come at me, bro. You remember that? Okay, good. I feel a little slightly less old now. If Garrett actually knows some of my pop culture references. What did I hit? You did that, didn't you? All right. Coming up next. Do autopen pardons count? Trump says no. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, sports fans. James Parker here for the Prize Picks app. And you know what? Let me talk specifically to the football fans because that's the one sport I follow more than any other. And I found something on the Prize Picks app that can help me out during the offseason. Right now, they have a whole section that is season picks. So these aren't available during the season. But right now, you can go look. You can find your favorite quarterback and pick more or less on it. Dak Prescott, 3,875 yards. Will he pass for more or less than that in the 2025 season? If you want to go to another team, you could pick Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence, C.J. Stroud. If you're a Houston fan, the big one I see up here at the top is Patrick Mahomes, 4,000 yards. Will he pass for more or less? So all you do is make a lineup of 2 to 6 people like that. And the more you make, the higher the winnings get, up to 1,000 times your money. You just need to pick more or less on stats, and you can turn your hobby into some extra cash. Download the download the Prize Picks app. Use promo code WBAP, the promo code, and that'll get you $50 with your first $5 play. So download the Prize Picks app. Make your season-long picks, and use promo code WBAP. Win some money with the $50 we give you on your first $5 play. Prize Picks. Run your game. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Do auto pen pardons count? Is the question. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. If you're not terminally online like me, you probably saw over the weekend that there were a few steps that happened between when you were paying attention on Friday and when you started business on Monday. Turns out that the pardons that came around on the last 24 hours of the Biden presidency, the day before he was leaving office, there are a whole slew of them, and all the signatures match perfectly. And quick analysis from some people who know more than me about the subject. Those are all auto pen signatures. So Trump says that doesn't count. If you have the guy in the building and he still uses an auto pen, does it still count? Because auto pen is something, I can't say that it's never been used before, but just off the top of my head, like I remember auto pen being used for things like when the national championship football team comes and visits the White House and they all get a presidential proclamation, them and all the coaches and the trainers and whoever else, and there's a staff of like 100 people. Well, you get visits like that all the time. You would tie up a lot of the president's time with signatures that absolutely mean nothing. So that means nothing. These aren't official documents. They don't mean squat. I have recalled reporting on times when an auto pen's been used, like if there's a government shutdown pending and the president is at some overseas summit and he's on Air Force One back to America, but he's not going to get here in time before midnight strikes or whatever, so they'll auto pen it like that. So I've seen it been used before, and I've off the top of my head, I think I remember it being used for official documents. Now, does Biden even know what all he signed? Did someone sit him down and explain it to him? Did he just say yes on whatever the pardons were? Or do we have any proof that he even knows what he was signing? Because it gets really suspicious when the guy's in the building. I understand using an auto pen when he's up in an airplane on the other side of planet Earth and can't get to this magical piece of paper in D.C. in time. But that's not the situation here. So the question becomes quickly, why did they use auto pen when he was right there? And should it count? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Trump says it doesn't count. Now, that would be amazing from the number of options we have in the Choose Your Own Adventure book going forward. Because now, look, I'm sure some judge is probably going to have a problem with it or put a stay on it. We got to have a trial or whatever. But you realize what happens if this is allowed to stand. Anthony Fauci should be in jail in like 10 minutes because that was one of the big pardons. All these people who destroyed the evidence in the Russia collusion hoax and the January 6th, both of those investigations, jail immediately. I mean, someone needs to have the fancy little bracelets chained together and immediately. Like, what's the holdup? So I don't know. One of the first things I was asked this morning by Miss Parker, she's like, "Hi, Miss Parker." She said, "Well, was Hunter Biden's pardon done with the auto pen?" I don't know, because his was done back in December, and there's no one's raised any red flags. I hadn't seen that in the reporting about it thus far. I mean, maybe it was, but wouldn't that be kind of another great piece of evidence? Thank you, Miss Parker. If the pardon for his son was actually done by the human being, Joe Biden, but all these other 300 something pardons that happened in the last day weren't, that's another like level of suspicion. Does he use auto pen only when it's not for his son? Or so there's some weird coincidences that are stacking up, and I don't know how this is going to wash out now, but if it washes out the way you and I want it to go, this would in retrospect be the biggest story of the day. This would be something we talk about a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe even like 50 years from now. There would be like an old Ken Burns type documentary or drunken history moment where they'd be like, yeah, and on the last day they had this demented guy who didn't know what was going on, so they just auto-penned a bunch of pardons and it turns out it was just the people that were pardoning themselves, and they knew they were going to get in trouble, and so they just stacked in any pardon they want to while this guy is just off eating having a sippy cup or something on the beach. So this could be the biggest story you've heard thus far this year, but we have to resolve the issue first. Do auto pen signatures count? And I want to know what you think. Now, Donald Trump was asked about that on Air Force One this morning, and I'm sorry it's so loud on an airplane. You know it's going to be bad audio. But he was asked about the auto pen pardons today, just to get you caught up. Ready to go. What are you doing? It's coming.
To follow up on the Biden autopen, are those executive orders, those pardons from the former president now null and void?
Well, I think so. It's not my decision. That'll be up to a court. But I would say that they're null and void because I'm sure Biden didn't have any idea that it was taking place. And somebody was using an autopen to sign off and to give pardons to, as an example, it's just one example, but the J6 Unselect Committee. They gave, think of it, they gave pardons with an autopen. I don't think Biden knew anything about it. And what they did is they deleted and destroyed all of the information that took them over a year to get. And the reason they did that is because the information was very incriminating about them. Like Nancy Pelosi, it was determined conclusively that she knew about 10,000 soldiers and turned it down. And if we used 500 soldiers, you would have had no problem, let alone 10,000. The young lady that said that I grabbed these powerful young Secret Service agents by the neck. Okay? You know that was a big hoax. It was a lie. And she admitted it. And they deleted everything. So, you know, what they did is criminal. I think we're about to land, everybody.
Yeah, and it's funny because toward the end of that video, the whole plane shakes and he has to sort of grab the wall. But biggest story of the year, if this turns out to stick. And when he talks about, you know, the evidence that was destroyed, you know, it was immediately one of those weird coincidences. It's like, what happened to, can we see the text messages between the Secret Service agents on January 6th? They're like, oh, no, we just updated all our phones and threw away that old information. It's like, even if you updated your phones, you wouldn't have to throw away that information. You didn't make a backup. You can't go get a $7 flash drive. That sounds a little suspicious. What about the emails? Oh, yeah, we just updated our email server too. That's the ticket. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Will we ever get the true story on that? I'm not holding my breath, but there's a little ray of optimism, and I'm asking you, do auto pen pardons count, especially when the guy is in the building? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Do autopen pardons count? 800-288-9227 if you want to answer that question. Trump says they don't. Of course, all the people that got pardoned, I'm sure they agree with the idea that an autopen pardon counts, legally speaking. And I'm not a lawyer. I haven't taken any. I'm not a solicitor general of the United States taking a case in front of the Supreme Court. But it seems to me like the autopen is something that should only be used. And there's a lot of work being done by should. But the autopen should only be used for non-official things like proclamations or when someone comes and visits the White House because they won the men's college hockey championship or whatever. Oh, so Boston college hockey team comes and there's like a bunch of coaches and whatever. Instead of tying up the president, signing 100 of these dumb certificates every day, they auto-pen that. That's cool. If there's an emergency situation where the president can't be in the building, he's got to go be somewhere else. He's on a plane or he's going to a conference or he was visiting the troops for Thanksgiving and he's in the air while something's going down and he's there and he like actively gives the autopen affirmation, sure. But we have no, until we have evidence that someone even sat Joe Biden down and said, do you want all these pardons? How do we know that he even knows who all these people are? How do we know that he would approve of all of them? How do we know? And why would they need to do that if he's in the building? He wasn't so busy flying around all over the place. He was available. He was in D.C. So why would they need to use the autopen unless they're just trying to slip one past the goalie? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Robert over here on Facebook says, here's how I see it. If autopen can be used by anyone other than Biden or sitting president, then no, it does not count. Several times we have seen Biden was not coherent as to what was actually happening. So how do we know Biden did it or authorized it? Even if so, it should have been done by hand as a respect to the office and power of the office. Yeah, I agree to that. So you're bringing up some questions that we don't have answers to still. As in, do we even know what he was signing? Was he briefed on it? Who wrote them? Who put them in front of them? Of the stacks of pardons that were offered him, did he reject any of them? Did he read through all of them and say, no, I don't agree with this one? Or was everything just like thoughtless, rubber stamp going through? Because if that's the case, then don't you think we could find a sympathetic judge that would do what's the right thing in this case? Because the question has been, who's really president? When someone gives him the crib notes at a press conference with the pictures and names of reporters, tells you who to call on, in which order to call on, and here's a picture of them so you can see what they look like. Here's the question they're going to ask you, and here's your answer. Who was writing that? Who was writing the words on his teleprompter? Did Joe Biden write all these pardons? No. Well, then who wrote them for him? Who was the one that fielded pardon requests and decided which ones would and would not be fulfilled? Was it Joe Biden? Can you prove it? Do you have any evidence? Was anyone in the room? Was there an email exchange that you can produce? Maybe some text. You can take some screenshots of a text message or something. And I'm not asking for much. You know, this is something that could go away in a day if someone shows up later today and says, no, I was in the room. We went over it meticulously with the president, page by page, and he totally agreed to all of them. Why didn't he sign them? I don't know, because he had an ice cream in his hand. I don't know, but whatever the excuse is, it doesn't have to be much. But it's a strange situation because if they don't count the pardons, the autopen pardons, all the J6ers back on the table. Liz Cheney back on the table. Adam Kinzinger back on the table. And then the people who destroyed evidence. That's the tough part about this is we know the Secret Service didn't accidentally delete a bunch of text messages when they were flipping over to new phones. We know that when you flip over to new phones, it's quite easy to log the data as required by federal law before you flip it over. We know there's not a bunch of tech newbies in the Secret Service who are jeepers. We just don't know how these complex, phony things work. It's not believable. So who did that? Who did it? Who ordered it? Why did they do it? What are they hiding? Who was the other pipe bomb guy? This is all back on the table. If and only if we can get all of these signatures voided. That would be wild. I mean, I don't have the answer to some of this stuff. I don't have the answer on why didn't he just sign it himself when he's in the building. I don't know. What do you think? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, vandalism against Tesla Cybertrucks continues. Republican town halls are continuing to be shot down, not just around here in North Texas, but across the country. But Tim Walls has a town hall, and it sounds like the opening of Price is Right. Just a bunch of cheering, screaming, happiness. What's going on? 800-288-9227. I'll talk about it next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, homeowners, James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. You probably went through some storms recently, like most of us. You probably got a lot of wind last week, like most of us. How old's your roof? Are you 100% sure that thing isn't leaking somewhere? Are you 100% sure right now there's not a small problem that's going to turn into a huge problem if you don't get ahead of it? Well, that's why you need to call Blue Ribbon Roofing. It's hard to find a roofer you trust. You don't go out ranking roofers. You don't collect baseball cards with roofers on them and watch their stats. At some point, you're just going to have to trust somebody, and you can trust Blue Ribbon Roofing because it is a family-owned business, been operating here since for 31 years. And now the husband-wife team, John and Tish, their son, I mean, he's 31. It's not a kid. He's going to be taking over the empire and running the day-to-day operations. And Blue Ribbon DFW.com is their website. Go there and don't just trust me and Casey and Bob over on the ticket. There are hundreds of 5-star reviews. So go check it out. Do a little bit of research yourself and then go to blueribbondfw.com. If you mention that you heard it here on the James Show, you get a free ridge vent ventilation upgrade. blueribbondfw.com. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Gas prices are looking better. You know who we can ask about that? Ray Trevino. He's the host of the Crude Truth from Pecos Country Energy here in Texas. Welcome back to the James Show, Ray. Do gas prices just feel lower, or are they lower and this is for real?
No, don't adjust your headsets. This is real. Gas prices are the lowest they've been in 3 years, James.
How'd that happen, Ray?
I would say it's a combination of actually how the market feels right now about how positive, believe it or not, they are with the Trump presidency, but also more importantly, due to the fact that OPEC has opened up their spigots. OPEC has shared with us that they are going to be adding an additional 2 million barrels of oil onto the market per day, and they're going to do that over the next 18 months. So basically every month until then, they'll be putting about 150,000 barrels on the market per month, which has obviously caused us to drop below $70 at this time.
Well, who is they? Is Saudi Arabia doing it? Iran, Venezuela? Are they all just inching it up a little bit?
No, James, it's really OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Saudi Arabia is the very heavy one in that. However, you mentioned Iran and Venezuela, and today President Trump was once again very stern with Iran. And that's, I think, one reason why OPEC is OPEC is adding barrels to the market is they're expecting President Trump to put some form of sanctions against not only Iran, but also Venezuela, which will then take their oil off the market.
Well, I just was trying to figure out the nuance because sometimes OPEC lets one member produce more than the other ones, or they expect production to fall off. Like when they were going through the whole Chavez Maduro thing and their production went off the side of a cliff, OPEC was like, well, we're going to have more production. But if Venezuela doesn't come along, they were dragging the rest of them down. So there was a little bit of chaos going there. So it's been my observation that OPEC hasn't been able to always deliver on these things that they promise.
Yes, Venezuela is part of that whole OPEC plus, so they're not a real true member of the actual OPEC group themselves. So any type of production that they will do once those sanctions come into place, they'll be on rogue ships known as the Black Fleet that a good friend of mine likes to talk about. That's the black market fleet of cargo ships that are going across the world right now selling basically illegal oil to other countries.
Oh, man, there's, I just assume that exists, but that gives a warm thought. There's oil pirates out there.
There is, and I guess it's part of that whole deep state theory that there is going on in the world.
Well, that could have been like what Han Solo and Chewbacca were doing. They were smugglers, right? They could have been smuggling around some black market energy behind the Empire's back, just spitballing here.
There's a whole generation that would say that Han Solo is a hero, so I'm not going to touch that one.
Yeah, and I'm okay if he shot first, actually. What's coming up on the Crude Truth podcast?
Oh, man, thanks for asking, James. We've got some great individuals. Ann Bradbury, who's the president of the American Exploration and Production Council, who was a lead voice in getting some of the EPA's laws already reversed under the President Trump administration that were so horrific during President Biden's. We even have other wonderful people like George Whitman of Black Mountain Oil and Gas, and also Dr. Molly Turco, who is a specialist when it comes to North Texas and all the geology here in our area.
All right, RT Trevino, Crude Truth Podcast, Pecos Country Energy. Thank you for your expertise in the oil on the James Shows. Have a good one. Coming up next, Brandon Walton is coming in from Texas Scorecard. Couple of stories that you are going to want to hear from him. Number one, the governor, Greg Abbott, is backing a bill which you think shouldn't have to exist in a rational world, but I guess it does. It would prohibit, not criminalize, but whatever the word is, prohibit, I think is the proper word, non-human behavior in schools. And I think they're talking about furries. I think they're talking about therians. You know the term therian? Maybe we need to bring that back up. But also on his website, on Brandon Walton's website, the Texas Scorecard, I counted it up. There's a half dozen teacher sex stories in Texas over the last week. So I'll get you caught up on both of those. Coming up a week from tomorrow is the next James Show listener meet and greet. And look, I want you to come out and say hi to me, but really y'all need to meet each other too. Have your own little social circle of like-minded North Texans to hang out with. So it'll be, I just made the announcement last week. The new place is going to be Plano Sports Tavern. It's at Custer and Parker. See? So it's even easier to remember. But look, we're in 2025. If you don't know how to get somewhere, just ask your phone. Your phone knows where Plano Sports Tavern is. And on an update, I had a bunch of feedback on what the entertainment options should be. And most people agreed to, this is kind of cool, actually. I like this. Nothing. They're like, no, don't worry. Because if you do karaoke, then it's going to be like really loud and you won't be able to chitty chat. And if you do a comedy show, you know, we're all going to have to what? Arrange our chairs and pay attention, or it'll be awkward if there's, you know, not a lot of people that want to pay attention. They want to chit chat in the background too. Trivia is one thing where you kind of have to be quiet and pay attention to. So no one wants to be quiet and pay attention. They don't want a band. They want to be able to chat. So okay, that makes sense. The one thing that we are adding to this is giveaways. I had some people say, "Look, man, I can bring some stuff to give away," and I asked our promotions department. So we will have some giveaways at the next James Show listener meetup. It's going to be at Plano Sports Tavern next Tuesday, March 25th at 7 p.m. So meet me out there. Come say hi. Judge me based on my appearance. Coming up next, Brandon Walton's from the Texas Scorecard on the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yay, let's go. And my next guest has some interesting stories here. It's Brandon Waltons from Texas Scorecard. Keep it going for Texas Scorecard. I use their stories a lot. They provide a lot of content for the James Show. Brandon, I want to start with this bill that the governor's behind. Governor Abbott's got a bill that will prohibit non-human behavior in Texas classrooms. Is this really necessary? What's going on?
Apparently so, based off of some of the stuff we've seen from some districts. This bill, particularly House Bill 4814 by Representative Stan Gertis, also known as the Forbidding Unlawful Representation of Role-Playing in Education, or the Furries Act. I'm not sure where they get the S from, but I guess it sounds good. But it essentially takes aim at these furries that supposedly, according to the author and according to Governor Greg Abbott when he was speaking last week in an event I was at, where you do have school districts that are allowing kids, and I say kids, up to, high school maybe even, that are dressing up as animals, that are, wanting litter boxes, et cetera. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but here we are, and here you have the governor throwing his support behind this legislation.
Yeah, I think some people are hearing about this for the first time. I've heard it referred to as therians. I've heard it referred to as furries. I've heard it referred to as pup play. We had a puppy play general that resigned a few years ago. I think that was the first time it really made it into the news. I didn't know kids were participating in that at school, though. Is that what we're talking about?
That's what they're saying, and that schools have. You have some districts that have encouraged it, some schools that have allowed them to do that. And as you can imagine, it's for every other student in that classroom, it's a major distraction.
Well, the problem is I don't care if people put on cat ears as a headband and meow every once in a while, but it's a sex thing.
Oh yes, I mean that's where it's sort of at the root of it, right? It's sort of this. Weird sort of fetish.
Well,
thing.
the term I like for this, Brandon, it's a socio-sexual activity is how it's.
I think that's probably the perfect term for it. In any case, it's inappropriate for schools. It's a major distraction. It's something that the governor says, the legislature, absolutely needs to pass this. Now it's crazy. I mean, we go back to this, but it's crazy that this even needs to be discussed. Can you imagine, like 10 years ago, telling someone about this bill or that it was necessary? I mean, it's hard to believe just how wild some things have gotten in schools.
Well, yeah, like when we saw the guy in the gimp suit in Pulp Fiction, that was the scariest thing we've ever seen. Now it's just like, yeah, we'll do these weird sexual kinks with school-age children. Mm-hmm. That can't be allowed to become normal. The other thing I wanted to point out on your website, TexasScorecard.com, Brandon Waltons, is not one, not two, not three. There are 6 stories of teacher sex in the last week on your website. Why isn't this getting more attention? I mean, when I go to your website, I'm starting to think that this is just happening all day, every day.
Oh, I mean, unfortunately, and as we've said when we talked about this before, this isn't even exhaustive. We don't cover every single case of it. We couldn't, or the entire front page, right, would be covered with it.
Right.
But it is unfortunately very prolific. It seems to be happening more. It's not unique to any given area of the state or any particular types, urban or rural. It seems to be happening everywhere. And, as long as it does, we're going to continue to report what the districts are doing about it. And parents can make up their mind there, but it's certainly something that we've seen, unfortunately, a lot of the legacy media ignoring.
Well, of course, because if stuff like this got reported on in the manner it deserved, like today, we're reporting on also the pastor that turned himself in for sexual abuse. Legit story. Cool. So are these. Like, I don't want y'all to stop reporting on that. I want you to include this. School choice would be a no-brainer. This would have gotten passed 10 years ago if we were aware of this. And just for a quick summary here, there was a 50-year-old 5th grade teacher in the Austin ISD at Baranoff Elementary School that taught sign language, got caught with, under the classification of his felony, 50 or more images or videos of child pornography. There was one in LaPorte, another first-degree felony, possession child pornography Eanes ISD, same thing, more than 50 images. Belton ISD had 2 teachers, one at Tarver Elementary School and another one at South Belton Middle School. Someone had I don't want to say this, with a 13 to 14-year-old female more than 10 times. Lake Belton High School had another one. There was one in Fort Worth Independent School District. Young Men's Leadership Academy had a 44-year-old science teacher hitting up what he thought was a 14-year-old boy on Instagram. By the way, great job to DFW ped catchers. These pedo catchers are amazing. But you guys are keeping a map of this, and it's not even a map anymore. It's just like a bunch of dots in Texas.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's filling out. We're seeing it in more and more counties, more and more cities across the state.
So, do we actually think we're going to get school choice after all that?
You know, I think that I think the legislature is closer now than they've ever been. I mean, I think you see that in the way the governor's spoken about it, but it's always been the Texas House that has been the roadblock on this. This session, you have a majority of members signed on as co-authors to House Bill 3, which is the House's version of school choice. Now, people on the left and the right have all sorts of criticisms of this, the specifics of the legislation. So there's still a lot of time. But what we're seeing now is you have more co-authors, more support for it in the House. I suspect they will pass something that is school choice. The question is, will it be will it be large enough to be impactful? Will it be universal? Will it be without strings? I mean, these are the details that'll be worked out in the next couple of months. But I expect that, maybe I'm just being optimistic, but it feels like this session is the session where we're going to see some movement on it.
Well, I hope so, and I appreciate you helping us keep an eye on it. Brandon Waltons from Texas Scorecard. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Find his work, TexasScorecard.com. TexasScorecard.com. If you're wondering where I get all these nasty teacher stories from, half of them in Texas, I pick up there. Coming up next, crazy interesting story here out of Arkansas. A trucker goes live on a viral video and says he's seeing other truckers getting pulled over. He got pulled over and he got an English proficiency test. Now, according to federal law, if you have a CDL, a commercial driver's license, you must be able to speak and understand English. So are they trying to take illegals off the road? They trying to catch truckers there? Is this constitutional? Is this legal? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Are you okay with cops giving truckers English tests? Next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let me show you the story that got a lot of people's attention. You can find this one on the Twitter feed for WBAP. If you're already on Twitter, X, whatever it is, you probably saw this yesterday like I did. There's a trucker in Arkansas who got pulled over, proficiency test for English. What's going on here? And then he explains his ordeal in about a minute and a half, and that brings up the whole slew of topics for our next discussion here. Should truckers be allowed to get pulled over and given a proficiency test for English?
Couldn't believe it. Going through Arkansas, I thought it was a joke. Got stopped at the way station in Arkansas and was handed a piece of paper, and it says, "Can you read and write English?" I said, "Yes, sir, I sure can." He goes, "Can you read this?" So I read it to myself, and I was like, okay. I started handing it back. He goes, no, read it out loud for me. So I read it out loud for him, and, it was short and sweet, no problem. He goes, "Now, can you write this for me on this paper?" And I did, and there was a whole bunch of people that had already written on it. And I was actually witnessing people in handcuffs that had been pulled in, and I was like, "What's going on?" He goes, "Oh, we've come across now that if you cannot read or write in English, that it's a $5,000 fine, and if you have a company in Arkansas that employs people that can't read or write in English, it's a $10,000 fine paid on the spot. If you cannot pay it, you're automatically arrested and lose your license." What a shocker.
Ooh, what do you think of that? 800-288-9227. Let's go to Kim Hillsborough. You're on WBAP. Are you okay with truckers getting an English test?
Absolutely. If we don't protect the other drivers, I mean, if some drivers can't read English, they can't read the street signs. And I've had people actually come toward me on a one-way street that couldn't read or write English.
Well,
because I talked to them afterwards.
All right, I think you and I agree philosophically, but just from a different angle here, I'm not worried about the safety issue of illegal immigrants coming in here and being truckers. No, they're not proficient in English, but for the 12 words that you have to learn to understand most signs, exit, stop, whatever, yield, they probably learn that pretty quick. And we don't have in the news a whole bunch of stories about Mexican truckers or illegal immigrant truckers running into ditches or causing accidents because they couldn't read a sign. I'm more concerned about the American truckers who are being undercut, the American truckers who just got underbid for the next contract, especially the owner-operator guys who own their own rig and they can't absorb hits. If they're being undercut by these illegals coming in, I think that's more important than the safety issue, because I see more truckers being undercut and having to go find another job or sell their rig or just eat a lower salary. I see more of that than safety issues caused by illegal truckers and their lack of English proficiency. So I don't think the English proficiency is necessarily a problem, but I think it's a good drag net to get some of these guys that shouldn't be here in the first place out of here. And I also like, Kim, the idea that it's going after the people who employ them more than it's going after the end user.
Mm-hmm. Also, I mean, with more wrecks, maybe insurance would be going up for the regular American truck drivers.
Yeah, that's worth a thought too. All right, well, great call, Kim. Appreciate it. Let's go to Hayden in Arlington. You're on WBAP. What do you think about truckers getting an English test?
Hey, James, totally fine with it, man. So the thing that I was bringing up is that whenever you are an airline pilot, right, all airline pilots, no matter what country it is, have to speak English, right, have to be able to understand English. So if you're a big rig driver driving a, big old bus in the United States where our main language is English, then why shouldn't you be subject to that kind of, testing? It also, as you were saying, with really, I didn't even think about it, brings a huge point of the people who are being undercut and underbid. And, this is totally a way to kind of ease their way out of it without a huge, without a hindrance, I guess, a way for them to make it work for them. You know?
Well, the thing that comes up in the fact checks under this story, and when people start to debate it in the comment section, is there is a federal law, 949 subparagraph 391.11b2. God, I'm so glad I'm not a lawyer sometimes. It says, a CDL driver must be able to speak and read English and understand highway traffic signs and signals in English. So there's already a law. They're just enforcing a law that's on the books, which kind of makes me think, and probably you too, Hayden, think like we've just had this law this entire time and we've been ignoring it for the last however many years this thing's been in effect. How many of these other useful common sense laws are we ignoring that if we just enforce stuff that was already on the books, our life would change dramatically?
Well, yeah, now we finally got somebody who's looking at what we should have been looking at the entire time and finding a way around it instead of just ignoring and sticking a Band-Aid on the problem or throwing money at it.
Or just saying, well, jeepers, I don't know if there's anything we can do. I guess I'll just have to go raise some more money or something. All right. Thank you very much, Hayden. Shelly Alito, you're on WBAP. What do you think about truckers getting English tests?
I think this is absolutely perfect because it's already a federal law, as you said, and it makes sense that Arkansas can choose to enforce if they wish. Thank you, Sarah Huckabee. But I think that it will be a great way to ensure the roads are safer, but also the people that are here undercutting, like they said, other drivers that are American but they can't really, get the jobs, they would be better off. And this is finally a American first country. Thank God that we have President Trump. But we just need to be happy that this is happening.
Wait, you pointed out something good. This is probably the doing of Sarah Huckabee because, it's the local law enforcement controlled by the governor. We could just do this here immediately if Greg Abbott wanted to. They could do this in any state if their government wanted to.
Absolutely right.
You know what?
Absolutely right.
Big kudos to Sarah Huckabee Sanders because that's what leadership looks like. You being the first one to do something that makes sense and works, and then everybody follows you. Yeah, that's a good little thumbtack to put in our memories there. That's Shelly and Alito knocking it out of the park. If you have a comment, 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You know, there's so much going on in Dallas. There's so much going on in our state capital in Austin, in D.C. Let's not forget the rest of the world. Michael Brown's here to help us keep an eye on it. Welcome back, Michael Brown. It's been a while. Welcome back to the James Show.
Hey, thanks, James.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on. Where do you want to start with first? Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Gaza, Iran and the Houthis, or the flight to El Salvador with a bunch of Venezuelans on it?
Well, let's take it. What's the greatest threat to the United States right now? And that's going to be the cartels in Mexico.
All right, let's start there. So I'm guessing the flight came with a lot of controversy when it didn't get turned around from the judge. Is that even in your purview, or do you just really deal with stuff once it's outside of our borders?
Well, I mean, it's all kind of linked in, right? You have Tren de Agua, MS-13, who are associated with narco trafficking. They're actually connected to the recently declared FTOs, or foreign terrorist organizations, the Sinaloa cartel. So this is a really significant event that these two highly sophisticated gangs have been moved out of the country, linked to foreign terrorist organizations. So that's a definite win for U.S. security.
So I'm making an assumption here that if Tren de Aragua people, they're from Venezuela, they're going to be held in a Salvadorian prison. Did we work out some deal for Bukele to keep to him foreigners in his own prison?
I think there would have to be some kind of high-level arrangement. I mean, Bukele is probably the only real strong support the U.S. has within Central and South America. So that being said, there definitely has to be an agreement to take Venezuelan nationals into his prison system.
But we're paying for it, I guess.
I would assume there's some quid pro quo in that arrangement. Yes.
Well, what's the criticism here that, well, they haven't had their final immigration hearings, and so we're breaking due process, and this is unconstitutional?
Well, theoretically, you could claim that these individuals are providing material support for a terrorist organization, and so therefore I think it would fall under the president's purview to have these individuals deported as providing material support, again, to a designated terrorist organization.
But these guys are these guys that were already in prison for other crimes?
I think they had committed other crimes, and so they were led into the country with that statute, with that situation already in place. All the Trump administration did was have ICE go out and detain them and then deport them.
Okay. I thought it was adorable, too. In the video that I saw this weekend, the criticism was like, how do you even know that we're just assuming they're all gang members? But if you lift up the shirt across the back, it says MS-13 and a giant tattoo. It's like, well, can we at least deport that fella?
Well, I think if you were to look at ICE, if you look at the detention records, the arrest information provided by ICE, you would see much more detail. Some of these individuals, well, yes, they will admit that they were associated with those gangs, but we don't have access to the intake information, the arrest information, the briefing information. Then I can tell you, as a former DEA agent, there's a certain protocol that was put in place when you arrest these individuals, when you process these individuals, you get that information and you try and assess, where are they from? Are they actual gang members, or are they just someone caught up by mistake? Right.
All right, let's talk about the other side of the planet. There was an airstrike against the Houthi rebels. That's an escalation in a theater of, well, not necessarily war, but that is sort of a warlike activity. Are the Houthi rebels really a big issue?
Well, I mean, if you look at the whole Middle Eastern situation, right, the Houthi rebels are a terrorist organization that are supported by another terrorist organization called Iran. Now, they've killed, I think, maybe 6 individuals and sunk in a few ships, right? So they're jeopardizing, the Suez Canal, putting lives at risk, and using terrorist operations to do that. So I think the U.S. as well as the other European nations have a responsibility, right, to secure those safeways. So, under the Biden administration, the Houthis were simply allowed to rain terror over the entire Suez Canal area. So I think now what we're seeing under the Trump administration is, like we saw with al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and ISIS in Iraq, we're seeing the U.S. step up and successfully mitigate this terrorist threat.
But they seem to be a religious-based group, in their mottos: death to Jews, death to America, death to Israel, all that good stuff. But they're what? They're pirating ships in the seas around the Arabian Peninsula?
Well, I wouldn't say they're necessarily pirating ships like we saw with the Somali pirates a few years ago. when they were taking over ships on the east coast of West.
So they're
East
not
coast
they're
of
not
Africa.
stealing from them. They're just sinking them.
They're just sinking them
Oh.
and restricting the traffic through the Suez Canal. To go around the point of Africa is extremely expensive. If you think about more than half of the world's commerce is transiting through the Mediterranean, the Suez Canal, right into the Indian Ocean. But if you cut that off, that severely hampers global trade and creates a significant security problem. Because really what we're doing is we're allowing the Iranians, which is a state terrorist organization, to control those waterways.
All right, last question, Michael Brown from Rigaku. The Ukraine-Russian deal seemed like that had been at least agreed upon in principle last week, yet Russia hasn't signed it yet. Is that thing falling apart?
I think it remains to be seen, right? We don't know what exactly Putin's going to agree to. And it's a little bit outside my purview as a narcotic agent, but someone who's worked overseas in the diplomatic sense, I would say we still have to see what is Putin willing to agree with. Is he going to be willing to give up some territory, or is he not going to give up any territory? I think that's what it's going to come down to.
All right, Michael Brown, Rigaku, I appreciate your expertise on the James Show, sir.
All right, sir. Take care.
Coming up next, we have a bunch of protests and vandalism and arson against Tesla. We have a Senator, Mark Kelly, swapping out his Tesla for a Chevy Tahoe. So we're not fighting against climate change anymore? Is climate change wasn't like the primary focus anymore? It's not what it's about? Setting a Tesla on fire is good for the environment. That helps. 800-288-9227. Details coming up next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Certainly you've heard of some of the stories about Teslas being vandalized. You've seen people spray paint swastikas on it. I've seen a few kings of Cybertrucks, where they scratch it on there. I saw a guy we watched him scratch a swastika in the side of some poor dude's Cybertruck. And then he's all baffled when the police show up, like, what? I'm just fighting fascists. It's continuing on both a high level and a low level. There's the guys out there who have set entire dealerships of Teslas on fire. Like, I've seen a row of Teslas that got burnt up yesterday. I've seen the charging stations where a handful of those were just billowing out all kinds of smoke. We've seen windows broken at Tesla dealerships. We've seen all kinds of cars and dealerships spray painted. We've seen dealerships get occupied with a bunch of people screaming and holding their signs and not allowing commerce and business to happen. So there's been a lot of violence, intimidation, coercion for a political cause. And we all know that's literally the definition of terrorism: violence or intimidation in furtherance of a political cause, by non-military actors. Boom, there you go. But let's not just, throw a terrible term at them and pretend like we did something here. There's also the extreme change in opinion from almost all of these people on Elon Musk in just a small span. Do you remember how much the media loved Elon Musk? Do you remember how much of a hero Elon Musk was? I'll just play a little taste of the montage of the media.
I would argue that the new Jesus Christ of our era are Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, and it's important to have heroes.
The 47-year-old engineer has been called the real-life Tony Stark, better known as Iron Man.
Yeah, all right, so you get it. So he was beloved here, right? But this is when all the people thought that he was on their side. They thought he was on Team Blue, and he was on Team Blue. He spent most of his life being a Democrat, voting for Democrats, donating to Democrat causes. But you could say the same thing about Donald Trump. You could say the same thing about Joe Rogan. You could say the same thing about Russell Brand. You could say the same thing about so many other people who have been left in the lurch by this weird shift in the Overton window of topics that we get to even talk about these days. So when it comes to people like Mark Kelly is the senator from Arizona. His wife got shot, Gabby Giffords. He's an astronaut. He's got a hell of a story, but his politics are terrible. Mark Kelly says he sold his Tesla and he got himself a new Chevy Tahoe. And wait a second. That burns gas, sir. And the whole reason you said you got the Tesla was to save the Earth. The Earth was hanging in the balance. Millions of people are going to die. Hundreds of millions of people are going to die. The oceans are going to boil. The seas are going to rise. There's going to be famine, pestilence, plagues, dogs living with cats. It was going to be terrible. Well, unless a guy I politically disagrees with owns a company. And then I'm going to go get this gas-burning car? You didn't even go get another EV? Ladies and gentlemen, Tesla is the only profitable electric car company in the history of humanity. And it's been tried over and over. It's been tried since the 1800s. And for a while there, when the first, auto industry was figuring itself out, there were electric cars and gas cars that went side by side. And ever since then, gas cars have beaten electric cars. And this is the first guy to do it. And we have thrown trillions, especially globally, trillions at green energy, at wind, at solar, at electric vehicles, at the batteries, at the charging stations, at all this. And then you're what? Going to throw it out the window because you disagree with the guy's politics? So was this really all about the Earth or not? Was this really about saving the planet? Because now if all of y'all just hate this guy in a small span of time because you don't agree with some other political opinions we have, well, then your main driving, motivating factor was not the Earth. It was not your benevolence in trying to save your fellow man. It all just boiled down to political control. Listen to MSNBC. Just tell a pretty obvious lie here.
Also overnight, have this post claiming that protests at Tesla dealerships are illegal. He said today he would label violence against dealerships domestic terrorism. Now, you know I am judicious in how I play this sound, but I think you need to hear it from him.
He said violence against terrorists.
He talks about some of the violence that's been going on around the country at dealerships. Some say they should be labeled domestic terrorists.
I will do that.
Now here comes the lie right after.
We catch anybody doing it because they're harming a great American company. Let me tell you, you do it to Tesla and you do it to any company, we're going to catch you and you're going to go through hell.
So just to be clear, you protest a private company, you are labeled by this administration a domestic terrorist.
No, that's not what they said at all. You immediately just aggressively misinterpret that, or I don't know. How do you not intentionally reframe that? She said violence before the sound clip. In the sound clip, the word was violence. She's like, well, anyone who protests a company is a terrorist. No, anyone who commits violence against a company is a terrorist, because that fits the definition. If the truth is on your side, why do you got to lie? All right, Collective Soul and Live. This is not a time warp to the 90s. They are doing the Summer Unity Tour. It comes to the Pavilion at Toyota Music Factory August 13th. For tickets and information, go to livenation.com, or you can text SOUL, like Collective Soul. Text SOUL to 800-288-9227 for your chance to win a pair of tickets. SOUL, SOUL, to 800-288-9227. 9227. Coming up next, we're going to talk to the Heritage Foundation about the economy on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome back to the big show. My next guest is going to help us keep track of what's going on in the economy. Parker Shepard from the Heritage Foundation on the James Show. Welcome, Parker. I believe it's the first time you've been on the James Show. We're used to the Heritage Foundation, but we always welcome new members. How's it going?
It's going great. I really appreciate you having me on. This is my first time on the show.
Yeah,
so I'm excited to be here.
I'm James Parker, and you're Parker Shepard. No relation.
None at all.
All right. So with what's going on in foreign policy, whether it's Iran, Russia, the Houthis getting bombed, or sending trained Aragua people to El Salvador, there's a lot of local stuff that's kind of getting looked over. And then when you do look at what's going on in America, there's a whole lot of Elon and Doge and Tesla getting a lot of attention. But what's going on with the economy? If the media is being so silent on the economy, I start to think, well, it must be doing pretty good.
Well, I mean, I think if you're following the news, it's really tough to keep up. I know President Trump has promised that he's going to have a blitz of activity in the first 100 days, and it feels like we've already blown through that. But I think we're coming up on 2 months now, and there's just so much that he's been going on and talking about, throwing up this kind of strategic ambiguity that he likes to do when he comes to negotiations. So, with the Houthis, he's talking about like, hey, there will be consequences for Iran if they continue to disrupt the United States. On the trade side, he's doing the same thing. He's saying, hey, we want to have a reciprocal, free and fair trade relationship. We want to have a trading relationship where there's mutual benefit. The current situation is not working out for us right now. And people are kind of looking at and trying to figure out where is his actual position, which he kind of likes to keep close to his chest just because it helps him in negotiations to keep people guessing.
Well, I can understand that. Do we have an update on the price of eggs?
Eggs are down. I think they were national was like $3.50. They were, I want to say like $8.50. Way too expensive for me when I was going to the store the last time I checked.
Ooh, I never saw an $8.50 dozen eggs.
It was $8.50 around here where I am outside of D.C., which is pretty painful. But I mean, price of eggs is basic supply and demand, where there was a question about avian flu, and the government came along and ordered farmers to get rid of a bunch of chickens. So when there are fewer chickens laying eggs, there are not enough eggs to go around, and that drives prices up. And lo and behold, once you can get the government out of the market, farmers are going to respond to that incentive, and they're going to try to figure out how they can do everything in their power to get eggs back on the shelves.
Well, I see also energy prices are down, most notably at the pump. Gas prices are down. Is that something that could be sustained? Because that would certainly help the economy.
Absolutely. That's a major change in direction. What we've seen from the Trump administration compared to the Biden administration, where they were limiting the exploration of offshore oil and gas, putting in mandates that would get rid of the internal combustion engines and mandate a transition to electric vehicles. They were limiting the amount of energy that we could produce in the United States on climate change grounds. And the Trump administration has come in and they've said, no, that's absolutely not what we're going to do. The EPA has rolled back a bunch of regulations, and they say, look, it's not an either or, it's a yes and. We can take care of the environment and figure out ways to develop sustainably so that we can provide the energy that we need to power the economy into the 21st century.
Well, and if it is really that important, maybe you should stop setting Teslas on fire.
Yeah, that's the easiest bit of hypocrisy that we've seen coming out of the left.
That's a fun one, though.
Hey, you got to buy Teslas. You got to buy these electric cars. You have to have them. But, oh, by the way, once he steps out of the line that they want to enforce, then they start vandalizing and burning cars. And it just shows that it wasn't about the climate. It's about the control.
Yeah, you're literally a Nazi now. Well, let's play a little devil's advocate. The unemployment rate did tick up to 4.1% from 4.0. We did kick a whole lot of people out of the labor force rolls. There's talk that we could have, a contracting GDP for at least this first quarter. What credence do you give to the negative aspects of the economy?
I mean, you can't entirely dismiss them. There's certainly a possibility of a downside. I think what we've seen for the last several quarters has been just kind of a stalling economy. You could go back to 2022. There were 2 quarters in a row of contracting GDP, which met the technical definition for a recession, but it wasn't ever declared by the NBER, and there was slow growth that occurred after that, and it's basically been the unemployment rate has bottomed out, slowly turned back up, but it's never collapsed. So we're not seeing something where there are these massive layoffs in the job market, but we are seeing a lot of people staying put. The opportunities that were there in COVID and post-COVID, where people were jumping and getting 7% and 8% pay raises, they're not as plentiful, and they're looking down at 4 or 5% pay raises and keeping the jobs that they have. So it's okay. It could be worse.
All right, Parker Shepard, Heritage Foundation. Thanks for being on the James Show and talking about the economy for a minute.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. All right. Hey, I meant to tell you earlier, I have jury duty tomorrow. Now, the last 2 times I've gone to jury duty, it goes like this. I show up and you have to introduce yourself and where do you live and then what's your job? And so it goes to me. I'm James Parker. I live in Bug Tussle. And I'm a talk radio host. And immediately the lawyers laugh. They're like, get out! Get out! And then they chase me with a cattle prod all the way into the parking lot when they find out what I do for a living. So tomorrow morning I may be laughed out of the room again and do a show tomorrow. Or you may have a substitute in my stead. But don't send me a whole lot of messages. Dude, did you get fired? Mom? No, all of you. So, and also the James Show meetup, the next listener meet and greet is happening a week from tomorrow, Plano Sports Tavern. So that'll be March 25th, 7 p.m., Plano Sports Tavern. It's at Parker and Custer. Your phone knows where it's at. But I'm compiling giveaways. People are just going to bring stuff and give it to other people, I guess, because I'm not bringing stuff to give away. So for more details on that, go follow me on social media. I'll keep you updated on that. Coming up next on the James Show, we have more predictions of climate doom. Does it never end? You'll hear it next on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. One of the big ironies, and it just got mentioned in the last segment there with Parker from Heritage Foundation, was the irony that Elon Musk is considered to be so evil, literally a Nazi, destroying the country. We got to get him out of here. Got to do something about this guy. When he was a hero just 10 years ago, when he was one of the guys that was praised more than any other. But also, whether or not you like the guy himself, maybe he is just a terrible person. But if you're a person that believes in man-made, apocalyptic climate change, then Elon Musk really should be your Jesus. No one has done more to reduce the carbon footprint of planet Earth than Elon Musk. No one has put more electric vehicles on the road with no emissions than Elon Musk. Not only have all other electric car companies failed, but was it last year or year before last? The Tesla Model Y, I believe, was the top selling car on the planet. Not electric car. Like it beat the Toyota Corolla. It beat the Ford F-150. So if you really do think that the production of CO2 by human sources is going to destroy the world, then you should put Elon's politics aside for a minute and still hold like a high regard. You shouldn't be burning Teslas to the ground. You should be maybe saying, can we sell the company to another guy, or can we get another CEO or whatever? But you wouldn't be burning them. Well, the question is, do they really believe in that whole climate change stuff, or was this all about control? Parker Shepard from the Heritage Foundation just threw that out there. It wasn't ever about the climate. It was about control. Control how you get from point A to point B. And you're right, the government loves controlling how you get from point A to point B, whether it's an electric car or whether it's a bike lane or a DART bus or a DART train. Just anything but you owning your own car and deciding when and where you want to go at all times, I suppose. Unless it's electric and they can cut off the electricity whenever they want, or they can turn off the car whenever they want. Is that what it was about? Well, CBS over the weekend did a story where we just got 10 more years of climate change. It's like, hang on a second. We hear this like every 5 years. You've got 10 more years left. It's like a sense of urgency, like a sales pitch. Have you ever been in like a sales training for some job? Whether you've been a waiter or working at an auto parts store or like a sales rep for, I don't know, a radio station. That's one of the sales tricks is you put in a sense of urgency. You put a timetable. That's why they tell you, this offer is good until the end of the day. Or I'll give you this quote and it's only good until Friday. Gives you a sense of urgency. Call now for your free reading.
I think the biggest risk is that we have a small window to deal with climate change, really. And there's, it's getting smaller and smaller, less than 10 years to sort of level out and reduce our emissions. And we had and have currently a lot of rules that deal with that. To throw those all out would undo a lot of progress that's been made to try to reach these new standards for our country and for the world. And we will lose our opportunity to really get ahead of this problem or even stay current with the problem.
We've already spent $2 trillion on all these green energy projects, on windmills, on solar panels, on electric cars, on batteries, on sequestration, on all kinds of green ideas. And we're still facing catastrophe 10 years down the road. Don't buy it. It's not believable anymore. How many times can Lucy put the football in front of Charlie Brown and he still try and kick it? If you really were against it, if you really did think it was 10 years we had left, you wouldn't be setting Teslas on fire, or you would be running a companion story. Yeah, we have 10 years left, so stop setting electric cars on fire. Stop wanting Tesla to go out of business. It's the only electric car company that turned a profit for 1 second of history. So, yeah, look, that's one of the things that definitely solidified when I was coming out of college and just figuring out what I was in the real world. The collapse of the enviro scare narrative is one of the things that woke me up and said, well, if they're lying about this, I see that pattern about all these other things that they're probably lying about. And it really is. It really is all about control. You wouldn't behave this way if you were really concerned about the climate. You wouldn't be buying multiple mansions on the beach if you thought the seas were going to rise on you in the next couple of years. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, we're playing Dead or Alive for 2 tickets to see Boys to Men April 19th. If you want to try and win Boys to Men tickets, call in 800-288-9227. Play Dead or Alive. I'll list 10 celebrities. You have to tell me if they're dead or alive. And today's category is 90s musicians. Dead or Alive next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Bob Lavelle, Home Marketing Services, is the guy that you need to think of first. You need to remember the name Bob Lavelle, because if you're trying to buy a house right now, you need to go ahead and call him like yesterday. But if tomorrow, a month from now, whatever, next job transfer or raise that you get, you want to get out of the rent race and get into a house, this is the guy you call, Bob Lavelle. Now, why do they need to call you, Bob?
Well, I think after we've gone through this for, 30 years now, I think we have a pretty good handle on what we're doing. And what we're doing mostly is finding people that did not call. They continued renting, and they've been doing so for 5 or 10 years. But if they would have called, they would have found out, over 20,000 of our customers have. You can qualify, you can do things, you can get from A to B, but you need to have a map, or at least a roadmap of how to get there. And that's what we provide when people come in.
From the first call to handing them the keys to the front door, how long should they expect that to take?
If there was just an average, so let's take somebody that's actually got pretty good credit. They've saved a little for a down payment. They're not tied into a lease. They're ready to go. You're locking 2-3 weeks. They're in a home. If they have those other issues, we work it around those issues, or sometimes they have a few bumps and bruises on credit that need to be adjusted.
Well, I love hearing your stories, Bob. You can be the next one. 972-392-9595. 972-392-9595. Bob has blessyourheart.com, or call 972-392-9595. Thanks, Bob.
Have a great one, James.
Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the big show. I love this part of the show because I'm giving away some good tickets today. Boys to Men tickets on today's episode of Dead or Alive. If you're new to the show, Dead or Alive, it's our easier of the game shows. I'm going to list 10 celebrities, usually in a category, and all you have to do is guess if they're dead or alive. Whoever is left standing at the end of the list, I'll just cycle through callers. If they get it wrong, I'll move to the next one. Whoever is left standing at the end of the list, they get 2 tickets to see Boys to Men. So that's easy. And look, if you want to play, we have one spot open. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. But you can just play along in your car or at work. All right, today's episode of Dead or Alive. Go. All right. Thank you, Mr. Jovi. Welcome to Dead or Alive. I'm your host, James Parker. Today, we're playing for 2 tickets to see Boys to Men at WinStar World Casino and Resort on April 19th. Get tickets and information at winstar.com. Today's edition, today's category, 90s musicians. We're going to start with Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie in Midlothian. You ready to play Dead or Alive?
I want to go last. I want everybody else to mess up and then I win.
You know what? How about Stephanie just invented a pass? You'll pass, okay?
Woo!
All right. How about that? We can do passes now. Stephanie invented it. I like it. Zach and Alan, are you willing to go first? Or you want to go or you want to pass?
Ooh, man, how many people are in line? Can I ask that?
Well, I think Jimmy just added in. So there was 4, maybe 5, depending on if Garrett screens this dude.
Oh, heck, let's just go for it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Started.
All right. So in our 90s musicians list, we're going to start with Whitney Houston, dead or alive?
Dead.
Yeah, she died like 15 years ago. Eazy-E from NWA, real name Eric Wright. Is he dead or alive?
Dead.
Yeah, he died in 1995. Scott Weiland, the lead singer of Stone Temple Pilots. Is he dead or alive?
That gentleman is alive.
No, Scott Weiland died in 2015, sir.
So.
I know. Heroin's a hell of a drug. Hang on. Let's go over to Richard and Richardson. Oh, my God. They named the town after you. All right. You ready, Richard?
I'm ready.
Do you get a lot of grief for being Richard and Richardson?
Look, I usually call in and give a fake name, but today I used my real name, and yes, that's why I don't give it.
Love it. All right. I'll never make that mistake again, but it is kind of funny. All right. Kurt Cobain, lead singer of Nirvana, dead or alive?
Deader than Epstein.
Yeah, he's halfway decomposed by now. He died in 1994. Chris Cornell, lead singer of Soundgarden, dead or alive?
Dead.
He is dead. Rapping legend Tupac Shakur, dead or alive?
I don't know, Big. Yeah, he's dead too.
Yeah, I had to think about it. WBAP audience is iffy on their Tupac biography. The lead singer of Alice in Chains, his name is Lane Staley. I'm just going through the top 10 bands or top 10 musicians of the 90s. I'm not purposely picking all these people. Lane Staley, dead or alive?
Lane Staley. He's dead.
Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, Richard and Richardson, all of them have been dead so far. 90s is kind of a...
I've totally noticed that, so can I stop right now and pass? No.
Oh, you can pass. Do you want to pass? Is that your final answer?
No. I
Okay.
want to stop.
Okay.
I'm seeing a trend.
Okay. Billy Corgan, he's the lead singer of Smashing Pumpkins, dead or alive?
He's alive.
Oh. Lead singer of Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor, dead or alive?
9 Inch Nails. I'm going to have to guess. He's alive.
He is alive. All right, and finally, for the Boys to Men tickets, boy, Stephanie's really regretting her past at this point, isn't she?
I know it.
From the Wu-Tang Clan, Old Dirty Bastard. His real name is Russell Jones. Is he dead or alive?
Old Dirty Bastard?
Yes.
He is dead.
He is dead. All right. Richard and Richardson. Maybe using your real name helps, sir.
All right.
All right, are you wanting to get these Boys to Men tickets, or should I give them to someone else? It's yours to keep or pass.
Yeah. Yes, I would like them.
Heck yeah, that'd be sweet. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
When are they going to be in town?
April 19th.
Or where are they?
April 19th, WinStar World Casino and Resort.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's a good price today.
Yeah. See him do Motown Philly and Water Runs Dry and End of the Road and Yesterday. So yeah, Richard Richardson just won 2 tickets to see Boyz II Men at WinStar World Casino and Resort April 19th. For the rest of us, we got to get tickets at winstar.com. This has been the 90s musician edition of Dead or Alive. All right, for my own edification, Stephanie, what do you think about your past now?
Well, I'm really sad now.
I know. You invented something though. This is the Stephanie rule. We now.
I'll take that, but I'm mad at Richard. So
I know.
that's okay.
Wouldn't you rather have Boyz II Men tickets than Richard's?
I would definitely.
Yeah, than
rather
Richard's
have
Goodwill. All right, thank you very much. Coming up next, I'm going to put a pretty little bow on St. Patrick's Day. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP. Now on FM at 93.3. Welcome back to the big show. And happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm wearing a green shirt today. Are you wearing your green? Did you get pinched? Yeah. Do you have any Irish in your heritage? I have some Irish going back. I have a couple of lines back to the old country. The O'Byrnes, the Gallahans, the McCluskeys. And it's a fun story for my family. I don't know if most families do this. I don't think they do. But there's a book that was written by like one of my great aunts, and it was about the guy that came here from Ireland, and he had to leave Ireland because he was protesting against the British, the Redcoats, in a rebellion, and he had what? Illegal guns. They had gun control. The British were putting gun control on the Irish, and he had illegal guns. I was like, oh, God damn it, I already loved him. You don't have to sell him to me. So, yeah, then he ended up coming over to New York. He didn't like it very much up there, so... New York City! Well, damn, apparently he is related to me. Then he went to New Orleans for a while, thought, I need to go back to Texas, and he ended up in Texas. So, like, this guy that existed in, like, the 1860s and 70s kind of followed the same mores and values I do. Not a big fan of New York City, but I have been there for work. Didn't stay long. I did do New Orleans for a while, but ended up feeling just right at home in East Texas. Luckily, I was born here and I didn't have to get on a boat to come here. But yeah, St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all you Irish and non-Irish people out there. For some reason, when you put green food coloring in beer, it does taste about 5% better. I have no explanation for that. Got an email here. This is Tony in Watauga. When we were talking about the irony of all the upset lefty people torching Tesla because, you know, they used to be for the environment, and in fact, you have to do this to save the environment, and we're all going to die. And now that it's politically inconvenient, no, we're going to set these cars on fire instead of subsidize them and try and force them on everybody and tell you it's the car of the future. Now it has to burn. Well, look, Tony's saying something that I think you probably understood and most people understand, but it's still worth mentioning in case a few people didn't. He says, James, all electric cars do for the environment is they shift the bad carbon production to places we don't care about. As far as being green, where does the electricity come from to charge the car? Either from a coal-fired power plant or a diesel-fueled charging station. The car itself may not produce emissions, but the charging station does, and the power plant sure does. And don't even consider the amount of carbon emitted in the extraction of the minerals needed to produce the batteries. No. I totally agree with all that, Tony. But that's not what they say. They're the ones that say, you got to drive these electric cars. We need to switch to electric cars. We're banning. It's, in fact, fuel cars are so dangerous for the environment. California banned them. They can't have any new ones after 2035. And Joe Biden wanted to do the same. They want to ban gas-powered cars. That's how important it is. So it's not what I think, and it's not what you think, Tony, and most of the people listening. It's what they've been telling us. They're the ones that have built this lie that, oh, man, we've got to switch to electric cars or we're all going to die. And they're the ones that aren't even living up to their own lie. But no, you're making a good point. And by the way, I wish I had your last name because then I could use it in radio. It sounds like a bad word. Actually, it sounds like two bad words squished together. So I'm not going to say it on the air, but hilarious. I wish that was my name. So jealous. All right, the James Show meet and greet. Coming up a week from tomorrow, Plano Sports Tavern. We're not going to have any official entertainment options there, but we will have some giveaways. I might go try and raid the prize closet here, see if I can get some WBAP swag. But some listeners have reached out and they're like, hey man, I sell Trump t-shirts. Can I just give you a couple to give away at the event? I'm like, what do you mean give them to me? How about you come to the event and you give them away your damn self? And so for some reason, like 3 or 4 people said that over the weekend. So there's going to be giveaways there. But it'd be nice to come out, meet you, do a handshake, have a beer. You can meet some of the other people who are like-minded, and it'll be a good time. Plano Sports Tavern, March 25th, 7 p.m. If I don't get interrupted by jury duty tomorrow, let me tell you one thing that we're going to be discussing here. Jasmine Crockett, it's not that she's dumb or saying stupid things, embarrassing things. Look, she's our congressional representative here from where I'm sitting now. She does a good job on all of these media interviews, and that's why she keeps going up the ladder. And this weekend, she was out there with, who was she with? Jake Tapper? Yeah. But this wasn't from Jake Tappers, though. This is Jasmine
It
Crockett.
is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally.
Say that again.
It is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally.
Is there anything you can do illegally that's not criminal? It's just a fun sentence. But there's a wider conversation that will be born out of that discussion. I just wanted to sort of whet your appetite. Coming up next, Mark Levin is going to be on WBAP. In the meantime, if you need more James Show action, go check out the podcast, WBAP.com and the WBAP app. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.